Fantastic. Thanks very much, everybody, for coming. I'm Mark Rogers. I'm the host of this event. I'm from Grounded AI. And we are tonight going to be hearing three speakers talking about AI in drug discovery and manufacturing and AI in assessment. And I'll introduce those folks in a second. We're very delighted today to welcome new sponsors for this event, who are going to be talking in a second. So thanks to RedTech Recruitment, whose wine, beer, and later pizza we're going to be enjoying. So thank you very much for stepping in and sponsoring this event and the next one. Very good. Phoned and checked. This is the sixth of these Cambridge AI events, and it seems to be getting a bit of momentum of its own. We're actually, to the extent that we're doing the next one, we're going to do Cambridge AI on tour. We're going to do one in London in association with an AI in publishing meetup for specialists around publishing. So that will be on May the 14th, if anybody wants to put a date in their diary for that. And the next AI event will be probably security related, around security, defense, resilience. There's a lot of activity in that area. So if anybody is interested in speaking there or knows somebody who might be interested in speaking, please get in touch, and we'd love to have conversations about that. So alongside RedTech, you may have also noticed the Cambridge Fruit Company, whose sponsorship we're delighted to actually, I'll just go to the next slide. There they are, the Cambridge Fruit Company, and they've given the fruit for this evening. So if you have fruit needs, bear them in mind. How do I go back?
Arrows.
Back. Oh, sorry. I'm showing myself as a Mac user. Grounded AI, just briefly about us. We are focused on citation checking. If that's something that's interesting to you, check it out. There's a product called Veracity, which you can find on that URL, which essentially is all about when you upload a paper, an academic paper, we can check what the citations are, whether they're real, the quality of them, and we work with academic publishers to implement that in the academic publishing chain. So if that's relevant to you, have a look. Or if you're in any sort of fact-checking area where that might be relevant to you, please check us out. Nick at the back and Conrad somewhere here are founders of the business, and they're very happy to talk to you about what we're up to. And then I'd just like to hand the floor over to our sponsors at RedTech, talk a little bit about what they do, and we'll get on with the evening. So please, Rebecca and
say a little bit about us. So sorry, I'm just squeezed you there.
Robert.
We are the co-founders of RedTech Recruitment. So we started out in 2019 doing kind of post-academic graduates through to postdoc researchers, finding them their first jobs in industry. And then in
January 2023, we opened up our Experience Hires division. We just found that at that point we were actually we were the highest kind of rated recruitment agency in the UK.
We're one of the highest rated, with a 5-star Google ranking.
Review. We had a lot of candidates coming back to us looking for kind of their next role, just because we've done such a good service for them. And with my experience in technical recruitment with senior appointments, we kind of pivoted and advanced the business in that direction.
Yeah.
So we now cover the whole of the UK and, really excitingly, the US markets now as well.
Yeah, so if anyone wants to have a chat with us afterwards, if you're hiring, if you're looking for a job, if you're just wondering what's going on with the very turbulent recruitment market at the moment, and just want a bit of an insight into that, then come and grab us after for a bit of a chat.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. So I'd just like to start off with our first speaker, Miika Ahdesmaaki. Miika is an experienced data science leader with 16 plus years of delivering data-based insights in pharma and biotech. Miika is passionate about people, leadership, and applying machine learning and AI to solve complex problems. Miika has a PhD in computer science and an executive MBA from Cambridge Judge. So thanks very much, Miika.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks for inviting me here. So we've known each other maybe for give it 2 years now?
Little time, yeah.
So I need to invite you back to some.
Thank you.
So can I just get a show of hands? Who works in life sciences or pharma? Okay, so it's Cambridge, so it's not surprising. But what about like the more traditional, also the high tech, Microsoft, tech? Okay, so I guess the biggest difference between your tech and biotech and pharma is the time to market. So when a scientist gets an idea on a new target to drug for a disease, it takes about 15 years from that to make the first sales. So one of the biggest challenges is how do you show the value of what you do when you're 10 years from market? So like AI investment or other things. So whatever you do with data analysis. The other one I wanted to just check is who here has made an investment decision internally, pitched for investment in AI products or AI deployments, or maybe you tried to sell an AI product to a customer or client. Anybody? Okay. And what are the biggest challenges?
I think customer education is a big one.
Okay, so they are uneducated about AI?
Yes.
Or what they use?
Yeah, the use of AI, but also what to expect and the error rates that you would expect from AI.
And what kind of customers are they?
Quite a large variety. So.
But are they like
in academia? Yes.
Academia.
Mm-hmm.
And what about you, sir?
Mostly internal customers. They could be clinicians. They could be other engineers. Could be scientists in the wet lab. Could be academics as well.
And what are the biggest challenges?
Mostly it's we ML scientists inhabit a different world. Establishing a common vocabulary, explaining exactly what the value add is. So yeah, in a sense also customer education.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's great. So I read a Gartner report that said that the biggest challenge with AI deployment is not skills or access to data. It's how do you prove the return on investment? So maybe you get the investment done, but then 2 years later somebody asks, what have you delivered? So why should we keep feeding money into this AI? What have you actually delivered to the business? And it's really hard in pharma when it's 15 years to make the first sale. So okay, so that having said that, so there are some ways to look at this from a sort of to put an MBA spin on that and corporate finance. So if you think about net present value as a sort of, don't worry about if you've not done corporate finance, but it's basically you should always look at what are the future cash flows of whatever you're selling. And you can't actually measure this when your future cash flows are 15 years from now, but you can look at it sort of proportionally. So what you could say is if we cut some time here, save some cost, or we increase the probability of the success, then you could say that you've increased the NPV even if you can't really say how much by. But you could say that by identifying, like in pharma, I thought I would only make this drug for people with lung cancer, but actually I identified people with breast cancer, and I think it's going to work there too. So you've kind of increased the pie. So the pie, you're no longer fighting for this pie, you're fighting for a bigger pie because now you're in breast and lung cancer. So whatever the point of this is, whatever in pharma and life sciences, whatever you propose to do with AI, it should somehow connect to some kind of value add. And there are, like I said, there's different ways. So time saved, cost saved, revenue generated, or increasing the probability of success. So this is just the next slide. So I only got like 4 slides altogether, so don't worry. So if you've never been in pharma, it starts here. So you've got a scientist with an idea. Oh, there's an interesting protein. I'm going to hit that with something. And then you start developing some hit matter, so some chemistry or biologics or whatever you do. And eventually your chemists are finished and you move to preclinical development, so you start killing mice and rats. And then you move to humans and you hope not to kill the humans. So the phase 1 is about, is it safe? Phase 2 is where most drugs fail. So this is already like 7-8 years in. Because your drug is safe, but it doesn't do anything to kill the cancer. And you fail. So all of these stages have different components of computational, so analytics, insights, bioinformatics, data science. We've got some brilliant bioinformatics scientists here from AstraZeneca. So Lewis is working on phase 2 clinical trials, aren't you, Lewis? Sometimes. Yeah. So what I wanted to show is across these different phases, there's different value that when in my role at Ryvu, where I'm still for 2 weeks, by the way. So technically still CIO, Chief Information Officer at Ryvu. So what we have delivered with the team, and I wanted to talk about 2 of these. So one of them is how we use generative AI to help chemists to go faster, to design molecules faster. And the other one is how we democratize access to clinical trial data. So the kind of medical people working on the trials who are not tech savvy, how could they get like live access to the data that has been generated? Because often what happens is when you run a clinical trial, so you have sites all over the world, and they're hopefully putting data from the patients into some kind of electronic data capture system. But it doesn't mean that your internal people actually can access that data. So we developed something that also has an AI component with the team. So I'm going to skip this mainly, but it's fair to say there's a lot of hype around AI, and machine learning has been around for a long time. AI has been around so generative AI has been around for much longer for chemistry than it has for like OpenAI text. So I'm going to show 2 examples. So one is this proposing new chemical structures, and the other one is the helping democratizing clinical data. How much time have I got?
You got about
2 minutes.
5 minutes.
5 minutes, good. Okay, so this is a bit of a busy slide, but the idea is that when you start developing a new drug for what you're typically trying to do, there's a nasty protein that you want to somehow hit. So you typically don't start from nothing. So either you start from some kind of a screening results, so you screen lots and lots and lots of tiny compounds, or you go through patents and you find a competitor who is hitting a similar protein or the same protein. So what you can't obviously infringe the patent, but you can take the competitor compound and you could have a chemist modify it a bit so that it's no longer covered by the patent. Or you could use generative AI to select the seed structure and just kind of push it through this generative models and to come up with new ideas. And the idea here is not to replace the medicinal chemists, but is more to help the medicinal chemists do smarter. So instead of them spending days thinking how to modify it, you give them a lot of proposals, and then you rank the proposals, because you're not just generating them, you have some ways of ranking the proposals. And the chemist can look at, yeah, I like that, I don't like that, I like that, I like that. I'm going to synthesize these in the lab, and then I'm going to test them. So there's this kind of like human in the loop generative AI. And what my team did at Ryvu is we started with looking back at the Novartis competitor compound, and we knew, because we knew that if we there was a target that was like an internal target, that if we stick the Novartis compound in and we push it to this machinery in a sort of retrospective manner. So the team had done the work starting with the Novartis compound and getting to something else over multiple years. So we stuck it to the system and we saw, does it converge to the proposals made by the chemists? And the answer is yes, it did. So we kind of showed the value. And we have to do this because the chemists are very skeptical of this, because the chemists don't like to be replaced by AI. But somebody still needs to do the work in the lab. But obviously they don't want to be just lab people. They want to be the smart guys and girls and ladies and what have you, gender neutral, and do all the thinking work as well, and not be replaced by AI. But you know, it's an ongoing challenge with people, like you mentioned, education. Okay, so this is my last slide. So this is another example. So in this case, we could justify investment in something by showing that we would save money. So from clinical trials, we were getting these Word documents from a CRO, and per trial they were charging about 250,000 for that. For per trial, there were 4 trials, and there were static plots in Word files. And the chief medical officer said that it's not a very useful report, because actually it doesn't give me what I want. So it's reporting adverse events, but it's not doing it by a patient. It's doing it by incidents, because a patient might have, let's say, vomited twice or had some other adverse events multiple times. So I would like to see how many patients, but the report doesn't tell me. We're paying a lot of money. Can you fix this? So we could say that by give us 50,000 instead of 250,000, give us 50,000, and let us develop a platform that integrates data, and then let us put some analytics, insights, and AI on top of that. And the team was able to do that over iterating with the internal client stakeholders over a 3-4 month period, and with some help from a third party to actually do this. So what we did is built this. It's called Databricks. You've probably heard of Databricks if you're in this space. So it was Databricks-based thing that integrated data from the clinical databases, but also like molecular laboratories sending DNA data and other data into one platform and harmonize that. And when it was harmonized, the internal team then could also build Power BI dashboards. So this is, let's say, silly labels here, but it could be vomiting, nausea, thing, and we could exactly control and make the plots the way that the stakeholders needed them, the clinical teams, the medical teams, the operations teams needed them. Okay, so at this point we could say we've saved money. We've saved we already paid 250K for one trial, but for the third and the fourth trial we don't have to pay that money because we have the scalability. So that's the return on investment. Is investing 50K now, we could save 500K. So the next step from that is because if you've got 5 people, you probably need to build 5 dashboards. But what if you could replace the dashboards, the dashboards, which are still, they're live dashboards, but there's kind of static what they're showing, by using LLMs and agents. And this is what we were testing is, if your LLM is like agentic AI, so you connect it to different databases, then you could say a query, make a bar chart with the number of unique subjects on the y-axis and adverse events on the x-axis. And it knows what to do. It knows to query the database and do the plotting in Python or R and then just return. So this is kind of democratizing access, and anybody can get anything they want as long as the data is there. So this is like, I think this democratization aspect is, in my opinion, one of the key things that LLMs can change in our space. And that's all I had to say. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to take, or we can move on to, is it Daniel next?
Yeah, thank you very much. And does anybody have any questions for Miika? At the back?
Trying to shout out loud.
Yeah, just shout.
Yeah, I'm curious about the generative part that you were showing, right? So in that case, it's possible that the model gives out an option which is very hard to maybe synthesize, or maybe even impossible to synthesize, right? So how do you maybe tackle against that?
The model gives out, sorry, what?
So you have a generative model, right?
Yeah.
So it gives you possible molecules that you could synthesize, right?
Correct, yeah.
It might be a possibility that the option that it gives out is very hard to synthesize, or maybe even
Right. So you're talking about this retrosynthesis and difficulty of synthesis, right? So okay. So I see your point. So the question is, what if it spits out something that the chemist can't make, or it's like 57 reactions in the lab, and your yield is nothing after that? Yeah. So that's why we have this. It doesn't render very well, but we have these different property prediction models. But we had something called synthesis feasibility score, and then the synthesis feasibility score is just a score, but it gives an indication: is it really hard or is it easy? And then for the kind of final list, we would do this retrosynthesis. So it's all, these are like the guardrails around your generative models. So it is a multi-parameter optimization problem. So you have to optimize a lot of things. So you might have the perfect molecule, but you're right, if it can't be synthesized in reasonable steps, then it's useless.
I see. Sure. Thank you.
There was one other question. Yes, here.
With your LLM, access to your study data, like how do you have like guardrails or something like how do you stop people just using the LLM to extract what's information they have access to?
Yeah, that's a great question. So this would be like an internally deployed model. So I guess we trust the employees not to do silly stuff with the data. But is that your question? Is it how do you prevent people from entering drop all tables? Right. And I guess we would have the electronic data capture is on a platform called Medidata Rave, and we're not directly accessing that. We're making a mirroring that inside on Databricks. So it's even if somebody drops all the tables, we can still recover. But it's a good point. There's a lot of this kind of ethical aspect and leakage of data, so we can't use OpenAI APIs to do that. Well, I mean, technically we can because it doesn't get the data. It just creates the queries because it's an agent.
Yeah, just one more.
You could have a separate pass with a more general language model would add more policies, so that when it generated a plot like this, you could then pass that over, and does this fall in line with our company policy before you show it to the user or the user?
So what you're saying is you would have like 2 layers of LLMs. One of them is doing the work, and the other one is kind of controlling there's no.
Is this appropriate?
Yeah. as a commodity.
Cool. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much, Miika. So our next speaker is Daniel Wigh. Daniel holds a PhD in chemical engineering, has been working at the intersection of machine learning and chemistry for the past 5 years. In his research, Daniel developed optimization algorithms to aid in designing manufacturing processes for novel pharmaceuticals. Daniel has launched a company called ReactWise to democratize access to AI in pharma and biotech with no-code software. And he's got a big announcement, actually, which was made yesterday about ReactWise. So, Daniel Wigh, take it away.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I guess to spill the beans immediately, the big announcement was that we recently raised $3.4 million for our company.
Champagne on you today.
Yeah. So this is actually also why we're really excited about this event, because part of the money came from Innovate UK to support, obviously, innovation in the UK, which is really exciting, I think. So yeah, I'm one of the co-founders of ReactWise. What we're doing is building no-code software for manufacturing of novel drugs. And I will quickly tell you a bit about where we sit in the value chain. So we heard about, I'm sure everyone's heard about drug development. We sit later in the value chain. We sit in process development. So drug discovery is where you decide what to make, and process development is how to make it. So this is essentially developing the ideal recipe for a novel drug. And it sits on the critical path to clinical trials, because obviously you can't start a clinical trial until you have the actual drug you want to run the trial with. So you can think about this kind of like baking a cake. If you're baking a cake, you need to decide on the ideal temperature. You can add different liquids, maybe have like a catalyst, which could be obviously like some palladium or platinum or whatever you decide in chemistry, and maybe yeast or baking powder in the case of a cake, and almost infinitely many different additives. So obviously you couldn't bake 1,000 cakes to find the ideal recipe. And in chemistry, it turns out there's over 50 million combinations. And obviously running 50 million reactions for one single drug would be completely impossible. So what Big Pharma does is hire some very highly skilled chemists to figure out what should the ideal recipe be. And then through a trial and error process, and with their decades of experience, they can find the process conditions relatively fast. But there's still months of development time. And we use AI to bring this down from months to weeks. This is all grounded in our research that we did here in Cambridge in our PhDs. So first we published on building large-scale chemistry data sets that we now use to power our AI algorithms, and actually also open source, so it's free for anyone in the field to use. We published on automation, which we're now using to couple our software directly with automated hardware. And I actually have a really cool video that I want to show you guys afterwards. And then we're also published on AI for process optimization. And this is this exact problem I was talking about previously. How can you use AI to find this ideal process recipe? And you'll see it says it with big letters in the middle, multitask, because we basically built algorithms to use data from prior campaigns to accelerate new campaigns rather than starting from scratch. This is from one of the papers that we published. So you can see here we have 4 different drug-like compounds that we were trying to synthesize. And then we were using our AI algorithm to suggest the process parameters. So if we take an example here, this green compound here, which is a potential anti-cancer drug, we have our algorithm suggest the first experiment. We have like a 5% yield, the next one, the next, and then here after 5 experiments, we jump up and find the near perfect conditions around 80% yield. And finding the ideal process recipe in 5 or 6 experiments is a complete game changer. We can think about it, if we had to evaluate everything, we saved 95% of experiments. So this is really a really big and significant both cost and time saving for pharmaceutical companies. Of course, being able to do fewer experiments is great, but being able to do fewer experiments and also do them more quickly is even better. So we're also connecting our software with automated equipment in a self-driving lab. So I actually have a video of the self-driving lab that we were using in the case study I showed you before. This is just a cartoon, but I promise you it doesn't look exactly like this, but it's the same hardware that we were using. I think I'll turn off the sound. So this sits in the chemistry department at Cambridge, and then we are the orchestrator of the equipment. So we sit here on the computer in the workstation. The next step is the chemical reactor. So we'll send instructions to the reactor, which chemicals to mix together for how long, at what temperature, and then they'll be fed into this flow reactor here in the middle. Just pause that. And then after the reaction is run, the chemicals are sent to the quantification system, either an HPLC or a mass spec, to analyze the result, figure out what was the yield, and then send that result automatically back to the workstation so we can retrain the machine learning algorithms, analyze the data, and then suggest the next experiment. And obviously you can see where this is going. If you can do this once, twice, you can basically keep running this system until you find the best recipe, and then the chemist can come back the next day with a sheet of paper saying how to best manufacture this drug. So today, we're an AI co-pilot for process optimization. We've built this software that really enables chemists to use these advanced AI algorithms without the need for any coding. We've got proprietary data sets that we are generating in our own lab that we give access to as part of the software, and also plot various molecular insights that I'd actually love to show you in a live demo of our software. And then I realized afterwards that this is being recorded, so I had to remove the client logos. But we're working with 12 companies from all over the world, including some of the largest pharma players, which is obviously very exciting. It's really encouraging, I think, to see how obviously the value of AI is being acknowledged, but there's always an entry barrier and an activation barrier to getting into these large companies. And everyone's familiar with very long sales cycles and some resistance, but there's actually a lot of optimism on speeding up drug manufacturing. So to give you an idea of what our software looks like, this here is our software. You can create projects which can contain chemical experiments. It's basically like a folder. Here we've done a lot of different ones. I have an example step here. And each row in this table is basically one experiment. So our software will tell you what's the solvent, catalyst, how long should I run it for, what's the temperature, and so on. You can record the results. And then to use the AI algorithm to suggest the next set of conditions, all you have to do is just select how many experiments you want, and then click optimize, let it run, and in a matter of seconds, it suggests the next experiment. We have various visualizations. The one I want to highlight in the interest of time is this one. So this here helps us get an understanding of what the AI algorithm is thinking behind the scenes. So kind of opening up the black box. So we can select for a particular combination of a solvent and a catalyst, how certain or uncertain is the algorithm in the predictions it's making. And then we can see it can draw a surface of the expected yield at different combinations of time and temperature. And we can plot this together with the uncertainty. And this is all in in attempt to really understand what is going on with our chemical system. How can we tune the time and temperature to better our yield? And we can do this across any output. So really, it's a mixture of using algorithms to suggest the ideal combinations, while also making sure that the chemist understands why the algorithm is suggesting these combinations. I also wanted to share a bit of a personal story over the past year, how it's been going, because obviously we started as just two PhD students that had an idea. This was around a year ago. We were still doing our PhDs full time, and then we were admitted to a PhD accelerator called Conception X, which I can recommend if there are any PhD students here, that give you the opportunity to learn from and connect with other PhD students interested in starting a company. Then in April of last year, we finished our PhDs and graduated. We actually graduated in May, so slightly before then. We launched ReactWise. We had 2 people full-time, me and Alexander, my co-founder. This is a picture, a selfie from our first in-person investor pitch that ghosted us. They said that this was the most amazing idea they'd ever heard, and they'd get back to us, tomorrow or the day after. And then we never heard from them until we then told Conception X that we were admitted to YC. And then 2 hours later, we got an email that they actually wanted to invest. But that's how it goes. No one wants to take the first step, but by then, obviously, it was too late and we didn't want their money anymore. Then we got into YC. This is Alexander and I in San Francisco. And you can see here is where we're then scaling up to, I say 2 + 4 because then we had 4 interns. So this is Galen and Oliver, 2 undergrads at Cambridge that we flew to San Francisco to work with us on the software side. And then we also had 2 chemistry interns working with us over summer. Then in October, we were featured on Times Square, which I thought was pretty cool. Unfortunately, I couldn't see it myself, but this is one of my friends that took a picture of it. Then in December, we secured a very large grant from Innovate UK to enable us to both build out our software and also generate our own proprietary data sets and really build a piece of software that's unlike anything that's currently on the market because it's powered by proprietary data that only we have access to. And then finally, this is us today, or I guess 2 days ago, where we were finally able to announce the result of our fundraise, and very fortunate with Y Combinator and Innovate UK and the angels and other investors that have supported us. So we're currently a team of 6 and looking to scale this up to 8. So we have actually 2 open positions in case anyone's looking for a job. So to conclude, I'm just really optimistic about the Cambridge ecosystem. This came out of PhD research between myself and Alexander in Professor Alexi Lapkin's group. And it's been really exciting seeing how we can take academic research and turn it into a usable product that actually adds value in industry. I'd also like to say that if you're working with wet lab chemistry, wet lab biotech, and you're going through these often iterative or tedious trial and error procedures trying to find the ideal process conditions, please do get in touch. We're working in pharma and biotech and materials science, helping with optimization of processes. And we can jump on a call and you can see the software for yourself. Please do get in touch. And then finally, as I mentioned before, we have 2 open positions, 1 machine learning engineer and 1 front-end engineer. So just go ahead and email your CV to careers@ReactWise if you're interested. And with that, I'd like to say thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you so much. Super impressive progress, even since I think I saw the first demo, 6 months ago, and it's even since then. So very exciting. So any questions for Daniel?
Yeah, well done, firstly.
Thank you.
2 questions. under the hood, are you using any sort of classical design of experiments methods to find those optimal points, or are you using some other method to get there? I'm just interested to know that. And second question is, how do the chemists feel about this?
So to your first question, we're using Bayesian optimization.
Repeat the question.
Oh yeah. So the first question was, are we using design of experiments, or what else is going on under the hood? And the second question is, how do the chemists feel about our software? So to answer the first question, we're using Bayesian optimization as our approach, so not design of experiments. Kind of like the big difference in the two approaches is where in design of experiments, since you're asking a question I'm sure you already know, but to the rest of the audience, design of experiments is a bit more of a rigid approach where you'll design experiments at, for example, the extremes of your temperature ranges, and it often requires you to do many experiments, maybe 30 or 40 to get started, where Bayesian optimization is strong in that it's able to work with very few experiments. So it gives you a lot more flexibility, and you maybe design 10 initial experiments and then 2 or 3 rounds of 2 experiments, and then within 12 to 14 experiments, depending on the size of your parameter space, you're already honing in on your ideal conditions. So DOE and BO kind of are 2 complementary technologies, I would say.
Interesting.
But yeah, most people in the industry are using DOE, and we're trying to convince people that actually both are super helpful.
Okay.
And then to the second question on what do the chemists think? I think here, obviously showing the value and showing that it does accelerate them, their workflows helps a lot. So one example is we had a client project where we asked them to estimate how many experiments would you need to do to find the ideal process conditions, or to reach, say, 95% yield, where they estimated, well, I would probably spend 40. If you could do 30 or less, that would be great. Under 20 would be incredible. And our software ended up doing it in 18 experiments. So that in itself, I think, really shows it. And then the second thing we've really found is these visualizations really do a lot to explain why the algorithm is behaving in a certain way. Because obviously nobody likes to be told what to do. And if the software just said, do this experiment with no explanation, you want to use your intuition. But when you can see and trace the decision making, I think it's really important.
Have any of those chemists seen your software as a threat specifically?
I don't think so. I think it's similar to ChatGPT, where everyone thought it was going to replace all white collar work, but in reality, it's more an assistant. So I think as ChatGPT or our software gets better and better, it just means that you're strategizing more. So eventually, when we build self-driving labs as a staple part of a lab, we'll still need chemists to strategize about what types of chemistry to do and solve solubility issues and all these other very practical issues that we need humans in the loop for.
Question from the back.
A very interesting idea to achieve the amount of optimization needed to get to your final product. What are your thoughts on applying the same idea to more upstream work like drug discovery, like more biological experiments with ReactWise?
Yeah, excellent question. So it's definitely something we have our eyes on. Obviously, drug discovery is absolutely massive, and there's a lot of value in optimizing in developing in medicinal chemistry. The thing is, the task is slightly different. Where in process chemistry and manufacturing, it's really important to get one very good process that you can then take to large scale. So you're willing to invest 2 weeks of time to find this process. Where in medicinal chemistry, it's more important to just get a set of conditions that work as fast as possible and then try it out. So now the budget of experimentation might be 1 or 2 days. So then you're not doing optimization, you just want good conditions as fast as possible. And from a machine learning perspective, that's a different task that we want to build soon, but we haven't built yet. So our focus is really being the best at one thing.
It sounds like you've got a very effective solution for the specific problem you're solving in process development.
How close do you think that is to like perfect solution? You're talking about a very low number of experiments there. I'm not sure how much better it could be. Are there any remaining like big technical challenges within that specific area? Are there any areas where it doesn't do so well? You need to work on? Like, what are the remaining barriers, or have you basically got it?
Yeah, excellent question. So thinking, say, 10, 15 years into the future, I don't think we'll be using machine learning to build a surrogate model and then suggest experiments. I think we'll be able to simulate how drugs and solvent molecules interact with each other and then find the ideal process conditions by doing simulations. But the problem is, if you have a drug molecule surrounded by a bunch of solvent atoms, then solvent molecules, this is very computationally expensive. And if you need to screen this across like a huge parameter space, it's just completely intractable right now. And I think even like in the near future, it's currently being done on like more on, single proteins with surrounded by solvent molecules. Is not really being done in small molecule chemistry. So I think in terms of what we can do right now, Bayesian optimization is the best approach. And coupling this with self-driving labs to do like real validation in a wet lab is the future. 10, 20, 30 years in the future, I think we'll be able to simulate it to get it right the first time.
I'm sorry, there.
Oh, yeah. I think you already mentioned Bayesian optimization. I'm just curious to know, so other than Bayesian optimization, are you using something else? Like, is it deep learning or is it triggers model? Are you using those, or is it only Bayesian optimization?
Bayesian optimization.
Okay. Then again, I have a second further then. And again, of course, if you feel this is going to violate your IP or something, feel free to mention that for sure. For your model to then train, how many data sets do you, like how many data points do you need for it to actually work there?
We have a limit in our software right now of 5 experiments.
Oh, okay.
I think it's actually very low.
When you actually give the software, it is not already pre-trained. Like based on those 5, you actually decide what to do, right?
So there's 2 different approaches you can use to training the AI algorithm. Either you train it only on the data that you give it, or you can select prior knowledge or prior data that either from our proprietary database or that you gathered maybe last year, and then you can use a knowledge transfer approach to accelerate the optimization. So to any chemists in the room, we are currently generating data sets on amide couplings. We're looking to Buckfield-Hartwig and Suzuki couplings next. So the idea is that a chemist can go into the lab and say, I want to run a Suzuki reaction. I have this scaffold, and then they'll be able to select the scaffolds that we've run our reactions on, and then say these 3 are relevant, and then we can actually recommend new experiments given that prior data, and then we can make recommendations with 0 prior experiments.
Thank you.
Very good. Sorry, we've got another speaker, so I'm going to call a halt there, so we can pick up later with Daniel over a drink. But thank you very much, Daniel. So our final speaker this evening is Kavitha Ravindran. Kavitha used to be a science teacher, is that correct? Kavitha. And has then boldly gone into an even more challenging environment than teaching in a secondary school, which is co-founding an AI startup. sAInaptic, we're just about to see, is a web app that auto-marks free text answers and provides instant feedback to improve students' confidence and outcomes, reducing marking time and offering real-time insights into student progress. So, Kavitha Ravindran.
Thank you. Well, good evening, everyone. Lovely to be here, and thank you, Mark, for the opportunity. Quick question: how many do we have? Anyone from the education sector? Brilliant. Okay. So, the majority of us, I think I'm going to take you down, kind of retouch back to your own memory, probably, of how and what the state of education is and why we are doing what we are doing. So that's my co-founder, Raj. We were friends. We met here in Cambridge in 2007 when I was doing my PGCE and Raj was doing her master's. And we were happy in our own respective careers until 4 years back. We had this conversation where I was talking all about marking, working as a secondary science teacher for 13 years. That seems to be the most thing that teachers do. And Raj came up with this idea that maybe we could use technology to see if we can automate that. So very soon, by the time we realized it, that idea became an MVP and a product, which is what we have. So marking, of course, as we all know, is a big issue. The problem is, it takes about 3 hours for a teacher to mark one set of assessment, assuming a class average size of 30. You times that with 10 classes a teacher sees over a week, very soon you're wondering where are they getting this time from. So it has always been a problem. It's become more a problem after COVID because teachers suddenly realized there might be a different job I can be sitting and doing instead of marking here. So we are seeing a lot of teachers leaving the career, leaving the profession, and marking is a significant reason for that. But the problem with marking is we do so much of marking, but that's what we do, right? So we give a score most of the times, that's what we do. That's a beautiful written answer, maximum mark for 5. It's a year 9 student who has written an answer. There's no way a student would know why he didn't get that final, or he or she didn't get the final mark. And the teacher also does not know what is the gap in knowledge over there. And you add this up very soon, cumulatively, over an exam paper of 60 marks, the student has lost marks enough to account for up to a grade or even more. So we're doing a lot of marking, but it's not really helping the student or the teacher. And the issue, again, the main problem is with free text, because there are enough solutions that automate multiple choice questions or single phrases. But when it comes to free text responses, it is impossible for teachers to give feedback on every question for every student that they teach. And that's what we wanted to solve. Now, there is a direct link between feedback and student outcomes. The time of the feedback, the quality of the feedback has a direct link to how much the student is going to achieve. So that's a study research done. It's a very well-established research, and it shows factors that influences student outcomes, and feedback is right on the top. And we also have research to show that it can actually influence up to 2 grades. And that's why you see so much of private one-on-one tutoring happening. So we all know that, but it's backed up by evidence as well. So then how can we use technology to give instant feedback, meaningful feedback for students on their free text answer? So that's what we wanted to solve, and that's what we did. So our solution, we have a web app. It has 2,000 more questions aligned to different exam boards, and as the student answers the question, they get instant feedback, they get a score. The AI, of course, evaluates, highlights the answer to show where that score was awarded. The 2 feedback cards, the green one shows the correct concept, better vocabulary, puts it into context for students, and that card shows the missed concept. So in effect, giving instant feedback to students, allowing them to make that real-time progress, but also for teachers in real time to get that score, but also to get that instant insights. And that's powerful, right? Because you spend 3 hours marking an assessment, you then spend an additional hour, which you don't have the time for, looking into where are the gaps in knowledge. So for a teacher to have that insights instantly is very powerful, because all they then need to do is, right, that's the gap in knowledge. I can see that concept being missed quite a lot. Let me go and reteach that. So we have a school app and a revision app, a parent-facing app that we launched. All was really going well. It's a typical thing of prior 4 years back when we started sAInaptic, and we did a lot of market research, and teachers were like, wow, really? You can have a technology that will mark for us? And then we brought the product in, and then you realize it's education sector, and it's quite hard. It's one thing to kind of have the product, other thing to sell, and then adoption, right? So education sector has its own kind of problems when it comes to adoption of innovation. And that's where we are. So if you look at the landscape of education, you start off, you have your school, you have your GCSEs, then you have your apprentice sector, and then, of course, you have your master's, doctorate. You can either go the academic learning route, or you can go the vocational training route. And that's where we were. So when we realized that this is taking slower than what we expected, we started venturing into other areas of the sector. And we discovered that TVET sector, which is right over there, so it's all your apprentice, your level Q, it goes straight up to level 7 NVQ and professional qualifications. Now, that again it's been there for 40 years, and the purpose of that sector is to make sure that we have enough skilled people leaving ready to be employed. And here, assessment is a bigger problem. I don't know if any of you have come across this. The variety of assessments, depending on what course you're taking, it's mind-blowing. It can be a portfolio assessment, it can be a class-based assessment, it can be a scenario-based assessment. So the variety of assessment itself is so varied. 650 apprentice courses offered across the UK. Some of them are probably redundant, not being used. Some of them are used, not as much, but that's the number of courses being offered by awarding organizations and training providers. So what's the problem? Quality of the feedback to learners is poor. Accuracy of assessors is you just don't have an accuracy. They're all kind of marking in their own way. And hence, you have reduced time for learner interaction, and cost to organizations in marking and moderation is there. A lot is being spent over there. So that was a really good sector for us to tap into. We started working with training organizations and awarding organizations, and so that's what we do now. So where we started off very specific to GCSE Science, now we have scaled the tech to mark literally anything. It can be a 3,000-word essay, it can be a Word document submission, a PowerPoint, an audio, video submission, it can be any form of submission. Not video yet, we are applying for a grant for that, but audio is still fine. And we train the AI to mark just like a human assessor would mark. So it's any format, so that's fine. So that's the solution that is really working well. Really glad we tapped into that sector. So where we started off here, so now suddenly from a business point of view as well, we have that entire sector. We of course still have the GCSE sector because we have tapped only into science. We have other subjects, we have A-levels, but that's a whole new sector which seems to be moving much faster than the K-12 sector. So what is the technology behind it? So for the school app, it is no LLM required. It's a very in-house proprietary algorithmic base over there. And for the B2B clients, which is anyone which is not in the school sector, it is still a very hybrid framework that we are using. So it is still algorithmic, but then we would dip into LLMs only if needed to provide context. If the assessment requirement criteria is looking for English grammar and structure, then we would. For reasoning, we would. We don't require a lot of data from the client as well, so we work on the client data. So if you are a training provider, we would need your questions, we would need your marking guidance, we would need a variety of student answers. Now we focus on variety and not in quantity. Previously, you would say that you need hundreds of answers to train the AI model, but now we just say, right, if you have a variety from poor, good to excellent responses marked, give that to us so that we can avoid bias when we are training the model, but also give the model a bit more context to make sure that it picks up all those nuances which normally experts have in their head when they're marking. So that, of course, makes us reliable because our accuracy is pretty high. It's as good as human markers, human assessors. It is cost efficient because we are not paying LLMs. So we are able to then provide our services to our clients at a very cost efficient way. And it's definitely more effective as well. So our technology is our differentiator. So that's been our journey so far. We have fundraised twice. We raised 2 pre-seed rounds, one when we started off in 2022. So we were very fortunate. It was just after COVID and investment in education was at the peak. Everyone wanted to see this impact in education. So we were at the right time with the right idea and the right team. So we were lucky there. We were actually backed by Bright Eye Ventures, which is an impact education fund, and a group of angel investors. And then we raised again in 2024, a bridge round. And we are looking to raise again now our first seed round because we have a lot of scope in the B2B sector. We work with exam boards, not these ones, but we are under NDA, so we can't name the exam boards, but these are all the UK exam boards. So we work with most of them. Close to 100 schools subscribe and use our product, so a lot of kind of traction over there as well. And in the B2B sector, so these are our clients that we have started work with, and we are looking at a very healthy pipeline. So very interestingly, Robin AI is also a startup. I don't know if you've heard of Robin AI. It's a legal team startup. It's a legal recruitment startup. And what they do is, as part of the recruitment cycle, their candidates have to do a legal task. So instead of the legal team doing legal work and getting more business, their legal team were assessing the candidates' work so that they could recruit. So for them, this was a perfect solution. So now they use our AI. AI automates it, and it's still human in the loop, which is what we would always recommend. So it's AI does the marking, it reduces the time. So instead of spending 3 hours, you spend half an hour, but you will have to go over it and then make your own decisions. So ACCA is one of the largest accounting course providers, and SAIAS, of course, is another course provider in the apprentice sector. So yeah, so that's our journey so far. If you know of any investors, do let us know. If you know of anybody who has a requirement of marking that is beyond MCQs, do let me know. So thank you for listening, and happy to get in touch. Thank you.
We'll take questions. I just wanted to say there is a demo which we worked out was just too complicated to do live. But if anybody wants to see the software in action, Kavitha can do a demo. You can fill in a question and get and see it operating live. So, question here.
So you're not using our lab. You have your own internal model, proprietary model.
So we do dip into LLM for the B2B clients. So when we work with the clients in this sector, we do dip into LLM, but we are not completely reliant on them. So we do that depending on the assessment criteria.
Okay, so my link question is, if it's you've got your internal models, and you're saying that you are, it's a high quality solution. There's an issue of trust here.
Yeah.
If you are rolling this out to schools or to the judging, the marking real students, how do you prove that what you say is as good as it?
Perfect, and thank you so much for that question, because that is a fear where 4 years back they were not using technology, and now they're like, oh wow, we want to use it, but then AI, can we use it? How much can we use it? How much can we rely on it? So what is the concern? So when you look at education, what is the concern? They don't want student personal information to be exposed to LLMs. We don't do that. We collect only questions, marking guidance, and student answers anonymized, which is used to train and then later on to evaluate the answer to give feedback, right? So student personal information is not exposed to the LLMs at all. Accuracy is very high. As we said, it's 93-94%, which is on par or even better than human assessors. How would you know? It is not for high stakes. It is for, in the school sector, it is only for your formative assessments, not for your summative assessments. We are doing pilots with exam boards. Exam boards are looking at it for summative assessments, which might happen in 10 years. Not anytime now, but even if it does happen, it will never be completely AI. You will always have a human in the loop moderating what the AI is doing. And for our B2B clients, again, Ofqual and regulators have very clearly said you cannot use AI for your final certification. So because that is the top line hard rule over there, AI is being used to make sure that the marking process is more streamlined. The assessor quality of marking is optimized, and the delivery to the students, the feedback delivery, is at a high standard. So that's what you're looking for, and that's what we deliver. So because it's not high stakes, it's not a high risk over there. I don't know if that answers your question, but that's how we are approaching it, and that's what our users are wanting.
Okay. Any question here?
So my question is more specific for handwritten assessment.
Yeah.
It's on pre-processing the data, because presumably you have one sample of each handwriting. So what's the error rate with that, and how do you pre-process the data so that it goes in and it works statistically?
So by default, we don't do handwriting at all. So it's a web app, and even for our B2B clients in this sector, it is still completely app-based, and integration happens via Canvas or whatever LMS they're using, or via API. Now, we can do handwritten, and we have done handwritten OCR recognition for exam board pilots, and the recent one showed that our accuracy was very high. How we do that is something that is more for our CTOs to answer. I don't know, but then the answer is the default. We don't do the handwriting scans, but I think it's much better now than what it was 2 years back.
Any other questions? One more.
Hi, thank you for the talk. I think my question is more probably related to the B2B clients. So do you also assess take-home assignments? And if yes, then with the advent of ChatGPT and things like that, people can get answers from there. So is there anything that you're doing to kind of identify if the answers are coming from them or from ChatGPT?
Again, a really good question. We get asked this a lot. Now, we say that's I mean, yes, that is a problem in the sector, but that's not our problem. So our problem is to provide a solution to automate the marking of what is there, right? I mean, we all know that there are lots of AI technologies that are detecting all of this, but then we also know the downfall of that. They are not accurate, and that kind of, again, but that's a high-stake risk over there that we're talking about. Change the way we assess. A student who wants to cheat will always cheat. So these are the kind of, discussions that we would have. But again, that's not a problem for us to solve, to be very honest.
Very good. Thank you so much, Kavitha. And can I just say thank you to all of our speakers this evening, Miika, Daniel, and Kavitha. A very good evening.
Thank you very much.
So we've got some time now before we finish. So there's drink at the back. There is pizza arriving shortly. And thank you very much, everybody, for coming. Thank you again to our sponsors, RedTech, Recruitment for the pizza, and Cambridge Fruit Company for the fruit. So enjoy yourself. Thank you very much.